When we speak about confidence, most people immediately think about the external signs, the way someone carries themselves, how they speak, how they move through a room. But those are only expressions of something deeper. If we want to cultivate true confidence, we must begin at its root, and the very first step is awareness. Without awareness, any attempt at building confidence becomes like constructing a house on unstable ground. It may stand for a while, but eventually, it collapses under the weight of what lies hidden beneath. Awareness is simply the capacity to see yourself clearly. It means noticing the thoughts that repeat in your mind, the emotions that rise when you face a challenge, the subtle patterns of self-doubt that appear before you even take the first step. Most people live without this level of attention. They react automatically, believing the voice in their head is an absolute truth, never questioning where it comes from or whether it serves them. But if that inner voice is built on fear, insecurity, or comparison, then it dictates a life lived small, no matter how much effort is made externally to appear confident. The paradox is this: many seek confidence as if it were a mask to put on, but masks always crack under pressure. Awareness is what removes the mask entirely. It forces you to confront the raw material of who you are, both the strengths and the weaknesses, and in that confrontation lies liberation. Because once you see yourself honestly, you are no longer unconsciously ruled by your limitations. Psychologically, awareness creates a separation between you and the story you tell about yourself. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the edge of a river. The water flows, carrying with it branches, leaves, debris. Those are your thoughts, sometimes clear, sometimes chaotic. Without awareness, you are swept away in that current, believing every thought is you. But with awareness, you step onto the bank, you watch, you see that thoughts arise and pass. You realize that you are not the river, but the observer of the river. This shift is profound. It is the foundation of all inner confidence. Philosophically, this awareness has been at the heart of every wisdom tradition. To know the self is not a cliché. It is a commandment that points toward freedom. If you do not know the workings of your mind, if you do not notice the fears that grip you or the beliefs that chain you, then no matter how much success you achieve, insecurity remains just beneath the surface. Awareness, then, is not just the first step, it is the step that makes all the others possible. And it doesn't require complicated rituals to begin. It requires a willingness to pause, to slow down enough to ask, what am I feeling right now? What thought just crossed my mind? Where is this tension in my body coming from? These small questions begin to uncover the invisible patterns that shape your behavior. Over time, this practice of noticing builds clarity, and with clarity comes choice. You are no longer reacting blindly. You can decide with intention how to act. That ability to choose your response instead of being a prisoner of your habits is one of the purest forms of confidence a human being can embody. But awareness is uncomfortable. It asks you to see not only the parts of yourself that you admire, but also the parts you've been avoiding. The doubts, the envy, the fears, they all surface under the light of awareness. Many turn away at this stage because the truth feels heavy, yet this is exactly why awareness is powerful. When you can look at the fullness of yourself without judgment, you begin to understand that confidence is not pretending those parts don't exist. It is the courage to carry them without being dominated by them. So the first step is not to fix yourself, not to cover up your flaws, not to project a stronger version outward. The first step is to see, to look clearly without illusion, and to know what is happening inside you. From that clarity, every other step toward confidence becomes grounded, authentic, and unshakable. If awareness is the foundation of confidence, then discipline is the structure that rises upon it. Awareness alone shows you where you stand. It reveals the inner patterns, the fears, the strengths. But without discipline, awareness remains only an insight, something you understand but do not embody. Discipline is what transforms knowledge into lived reality. It is the bridge between intention and action, and without it, confidence can never become stable or lasting. When most people hear the word discipline, they immediately think of restriction, punishment, or harsh self-control. But true discipline is not about denying yourself, it is about training yourself. It is the art of repetition, of showing up again and again, until what was once unfamiliar becomes natural. Confidence is not a sudden realization. It is a muscle, and like every muscle, it grows through consistent use. Psychologically, discipline builds trust within yourself. Think about it: each time you make a commitment to do something, and you actually follow through, you send yourself a message: I can rely on me. This message is far more powerful than external validation, because it comes from direct experience. Over time, that trust becomes unshakable. You no longer wonder whether you will be able to face a challenge, because you have proven to yourself, through disciplined practice, that you can. Philosophically, discipline can be seen as alignment. Most people live in contradiction. They want strength but practice weakness. They want clarity but practice distraction. They want confidence but practice avoidance. Discipline removes this contradiction. It brings your daily actions into harmony with your deeper intention. And when your actions and your intention are aligned, there is a sense of power that arises naturally, because nothing within you is pulling in the opposite direction. It is important to recognize that discipline does not need to be grand. In fact, the small daily practices are what carry the greatest weight. Something as simple as waking up when you said you would, finishing the task you began, or keeping a promise you made to yourself. All of these create an inner history of reliability. Each repetition may feel insignificant in the moment, but together they weave the fabric of your self-belief. Confidence is not built in a single dramatic act. It is the quiet accumulation of many small victories over time. But discipline also demands honesty. It will reveal where you are weak, where you give in too quickly, where you allow comfort to override growth. And that honesty can sting. Yet, just as a muscle feels sore when it is growing, this discomfort is the sign that you are strengthening your inner foundation. If you avoid this discomfort, you remain stagnant, always dreaming of confidence but never embodying it. If you lean into it, you realize that the ability to endure and persist is itself one of the deepest sources of strength. There is also a misconception that discipline restricts freedom. In reality, the opposite is true. The undisciplined mind is a slave to impulse, constantly pulled by distraction, by craving, by fear. The disciplined mind is free because it can choose. It is no longer chained to the noise of the moment, but directed by clear intention. This freedom, born of discipline, is what gives confidence its unmistakable energy. It is the calm certainty of someone who knows they are in command of themselves. So when we speak of discipline, we are not speaking about rigidity or punishment. We are speaking about practice, about devotion, about the willingness to repeat until what once felt impossible becomes second nature. Confidence is not a gift given to a few. It is the natural result of discipline lived consistently. Fear is often seen as the great enemy of confidence. Many people wait for the day when fear disappears, imagining that once they no longer feel afraid, then they will finally be ready to act, to speak, to step forward. But that day never comes, because fear is not meant to vanish, it is meant to be faced. True confidence is not the absence of fear, it is the ability to move despite its presence. It is the strength to carry fear with you without allowing it to dictate your direction. If we look closely, fear is simply a response of the mind to the unknown. It is the body's way of warning us, be careful, there is risk here, there is uncertainty. Fear, in this sense, is not an enemy, it is a teacher. It shows us where our edges are, where we have not yet grown, where the boundaries of our comfort zone lie. Every time you feel fear, you are standing at the threshold of expansion. The question is not how to eliminate fear, but how to step through that threshold without retreating. Psychologically, fear operates like a shadow. The more you run from it, the larger it appears. The more you avoid it, the more power it gains. Avoidance convinces the mind that fear is greater than it truly is. But the moment you turn toward it, the shadow begins to shrink. This is why facing fear is so transformative. It reverses the pattern of avoidance that keeps people trapped. Each time you choose to act in the presence of fear, you rewire your brain. You teach yourself that fear is not a stop sign, but a signal. This is where growth begins. Philosophically, fear reminds us of impermanence. We fear rejection, failure, loss. Yet beneath all of these is the recognition that nothing is guaranteed. To face fear is to accept this truth, and in accepting it, we discover freedom. When you stop trying to control every outcome, when you stop demanding certainty, you gain the ability to move with courage. Confidence emerges not because the path is safe, but because you have decided that uncertainty will not prevent you from living fully. There is a simple but powerful exercise. Ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? In most cases, the mind imagines catastrophic scenarios, but when examined closely, they are often not as destructive as we first believe. You may fail, you may feel embarrassed, you may be rejected. But each of these is temporary. None of them are fatal. And once you see that the worst case is survivable, fear loses much of its grip. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. The key is practice. Just as discipline builds confidence through repetition, facing fear requires repeated exposure. Start with small steps. Confront the fears that are within reach. Speak when you would normally remain silent. Try something new even when doubt arises. Over time, this repeated courage compounds, and the fears that once paralyzed you begin to dissolve. You start to recognize that fear is not an obstacle to confidence. It is the very path toward it. But let us be clear, fear never fully disappears. And it shouldn't. It is a sign that you are alive, that you are stretching beyond what is familiar. If you feel no fear at all, it means you are living entirely within the borders of your comfort zone, repeating the same patterns, never expanding. Fear then is not the enemy. Stagnation is. So, confidence is not built in the absence of fear, but in the decision to act anyway. Each time you face fear, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was held captive by hesitation. And with each step, your world expands, and so does your strength. Courage is not waiting for fear to leave. It is learning to walk hand in hand with it. One of the greatest obstacles to authentic confidence is the constant hunger for approval. From an early age, we are conditioned to seek recognition from parents, from teachers, from peers. And as we grow older, this tendency does not disappear. It only becomes more sophisticated. We look for validation through success, through appearance, through social recognition, through the approval of those we admire or even those we compete against. But when your sense of worth depends on the shifting opinions of others, you place the foundation of your confidence on unstable ground. It becomes fragile, easily shaken by criticism, silence, or indifference. To detach from external validation is not to deny the value of others' perspectives. It is to recognize that their opinions, whether positive or negative, do not define who you are. If someone praises you, it may feel good, but that praise is not the source of your worth. And if someone criticizes you, it may sting, but that criticism does not diminish your value. When you anchor your confidence in external voices, you hand over control of your inner state to forces beyond your reach. Detachment is the reclaiming of that control. Psychologically, dependence on validation creates a cycle of anxiety. You begin to measure yourself not by your own standards, but by how others respond to you. If they smile, you feel secure. If they frown, you feel uncertain. Over time, this creates an unstable identity, constantly adjusting, constantly bending, never fully rooted. True confidence, however, is stability. It is the ability to remain centered regardless of whether the crowd applauds or turns away. Philosophically, this detachment echoes a timeless teaching. Freedom comes when you are no longer enslaved by praise or blame. Imagine a scale that tips back and forth. On one side rests admiration, on the other rests criticism. Most people live on that scale, rising when they are praised, collapsing when they are judged. But the wise step off the scale entirely. They understand that both praise and criticism are fleeting, and neither has the power to alter the essence of who they are. This does not mean becoming indifferent or cold. Detachment is not about rejecting human connection. It is about cultivating an inner anchor so that you can engage with others fully, but without being ruled by their opinions. In fact, when you stop needing approval, you begin to interact with people more authentically. You speak more honestly. You act with greater freedom. You are no longer performing for acceptance. You are simply being. And that authenticity is what others often perceive as true confidence. There is also a paradox here. The more you detach from the need for validation, the more naturally respect and admiration tend to come. People sense when someone is grounded within themselves, and they are drawn to it. But the moment you begin chasing approval again, that natural strength evaporates. The key is to remember that respect is a byproduct, not a goal. Your goal is alignment with yourself, not alignment with the endless expectations of the world. Of course, detachment is not easy. It takes practice to quiet the mind that constantly asks, "What do they think of me?" But the practice begins in awareness. Each time that question arises, remind yourself their opinion does not change my value. Slowly the grip loosens. Over time, you realize that freedom from validation is not the loss of connection. It is the beginning of real self-respect. So the step is simple, but not easy. Learn to let go of the need for others to confirm who you are. Stand in your own presence, unmoved by the shifting winds of approval or disapproval. This is where confidence ceases to be performance and becomes essence. The one who is free from needing validation is the one who finally lives with unshakable confidence. Confidence is often spoken of as a state of mind, as if it exists only in thoughts, in self-belief, in the way we perceive ourselves internally. But in truth, the mind and body are not separate. They are deeply intertwined, two reflections of the same essence. The way you carry your body directly influences the way you think and feel, and the state of your mind is constantly expressed through your posture, your breath, and your movement. To cultivate authentic confidence, you must learn to bring these two dimensions into harmony, the body supporting the mind, and the mind guiding the body. Think for a moment about how easily the body reveals inner states. A person weighed down by doubt does not need to speak a single word. You can see it in their shoulders, in the way they avoid eye contact, in the shallow rhythm of their breath. In the same way, someone grounded in confidence radiates it without saying anything. The spine is upright, the gaze steady, the movements deliberate. The body tells the story before the mind has spoken. This is why mastering the connection between body and mind is so essential. It allows you to shape not only how others perceive you, but more importantly, how you experience yourself. From a psychological perspective, the body provides constant feedback to the brain. This is why even small adjustments in posture or breathing can shift your internal state. Studies have shown that when people stand tall, expand their chest, and breathe deeply, their sense of assurance increases, even if nothing else in their circumstances has changed. The body is not merely a reflection of confidence. It is one of the tools through which confidence is created. Philosophically, this connection has always been recognized. Ancient traditions of martial arts, meditation, and spiritual practice emphasize the unification of body and mind. They understood that confidence, clarity, and strength do not arise in isolation but through disciplined attention to posture, breath, and presence. The warrior who cannot regulate his breath will falter under pressure. The thinker who cannot sit still with clarity will drown in distraction. In both cases, the mind depends on the body's support. This integration does not require complex rituals to begin. It can be as simple as paying attention to how you enter a room. Do you shrink into yourself, or do you allow your body to expand naturally? Do you breathe quickly and shallowly when stressed, or do you slow the breath to steady the mind? These subtle practices accumulate. Over time, they reprogram your nervous system to associate physical openness with inner calm, and inner calm with outer strength. The connection between body and mind also serves another purpose. It grounds you in the present moment. Fear often comes from imagining the future. Regret and self-doubt often arise from revisiting the past. But the body always exists here now. When you bring attention to your breath, when you root yourself through your posture, you return to the immediacy of this moment. And in the present, confidence is always more accessible because it is not clouded by imagined outcomes. To live with confidence, then, is to train the body as much as the mind. Stand tall even when you feel small. Breathe deeply even when anxiety tightens your chest. Move deliberately even when uncertainty tempts you to hesitate. In this way, you teach the body to support the mind, and the mind to guide the body. Confidence is not only what you think, it is what you embody. And when body and mind move as one, the presence you radiate cannot be shaken. The way you hold yourself shapes the way you hold your life. Confidence, when it stands alone, can become fragile or even misguided. A person may be confident in their abilities, in their presence, in their discipline, yet if that confidence exists only for personal gain, it eventually loses depth. It risks becoming arrogance, a self-centered projection rather than a grounded strength. What transforms confidence into something enduring and meaningful is purpose. When you connect your confidence to something greater than yourself, when your strength is tied to contribution, you give it roots that no external challenge can easily shake. Purpose provides direction. Without it, even the most disciplined person can drift, achieving goals yet feeling empty once they are reached. Purpose is what aligns your actions with a deeper meaning. It answers the questions: why am I walking this path? Why do I seek this strength? For whom or for what am I growing? When confidence is tethered to those questions, it becomes more than self-belief. It becomes service. And in service there is resilience. Psychologically, human beings are wired for connection and contribution. Studies show that people who live with a sense of purpose not only feel more fulfilled but also demonstrate greater perseverance when facing adversity. Why? Because when the motivation is larger than the self, the challenges along the way do not appear as threats to identity, but as necessary steps in fulfilling a mission. If you see your journey as only about you, then every setback feels personal, every failure an attack on your worth. But when you carry a purpose, setbacks become part of a larger unfolding. You endure not because it is easy, but because you know why it matters. Philosophically, purpose anchors confidence in humility. It reminds us that our individual strength is not an end, but a means. The warrior trains not simply to be strong, but to protect. The healer studies not only for knowledge, but to relieve suffering. Even the artist creates not only for self-expression, but to touch the hearts of others. When your confidence is guided by purpose, It is no longer about proving yourself. It is about serving something beyond yourself. This shift dissolves the ego's need for comparison. You are not walking your path to be better than others. You are walking it because it is aligned with who you are and what you are meant to give. This does not mean purpose must always be grand. It can live in small gestures, in the way you treat others, in the example you set, in the responsibility you take for those who rely on you. Even these small acts can give rise to immense confidence, because they remind you that your strength is not wasted, it is used. And when strength is used for the benefit of others, it grows exponentially, because it is constantly renewed by the impact it creates. But purpose also demands honesty. It requires you to ask, am I walking a path that is truly mine, or one that was chosen for me by expectation, by fear, by habit? Confidence cannot reach its full potential if it is tied to a purpose that is not authentic. The alignment must be genuine. When it is, confidence becomes less about performance and more about presence. It radiates not from trying to appear strong, but from knowing that your life has meaning and direction. So when you think of confidence, do not imagine only standing tall, speaking clearly, or carrying yourself with composure. Think of confidence as the energy that allows you to fulfill your role in the world with clarity and resilience. It is the quiet strength that says, I know who I am, I know why I walk this path, and I know that my steps matter.